In the industry where we are right now in crypto, in frontier markets, we see that there's a triad that basically great founders have great product background, they are crypto natives, and they should be regionally native for different types of solutions. Being LatAm native or frontier market native, we understand the problems a lot better.
You can have incredibly talented founders, but if you don't have an incredibly talented team next to you, then that becomes incredibly challenging, right? So
I really like is one of these maps that presents how the different areas of stablecoin payments.
one of the things that I find really interesting with these types of maps is the emergence and the surge of these companies over the course of time, right? So
hello everybody, welcome to another episode of Frontera podcast where we analyze what's happening in crypto in the frontier markets. These are Latin America, Eastern Europe, Africa, Southeast Asia. We've seen such a big opportunity of what we're doing. So much people is getting really excited about stablecoins, about crypto in these regions, and we believe and we know that we are some of the best researchers and crypto builders around in these frontier markets. So we bring all our insight to you. I'm Ab, co-founder and CEO of Bando. I'm with my great friend Kush, founder of Odyssea. Man, how's everything? How are you? Where are you right now? Traveling as always.
right now I'm in Guatemala. So I actually tried to just generally slow down a lot of the travel movements. We've just been closing off some big projects and actually feels really nice. I know we were reflecting on the fact that when I'm not traveling, you're traveling and vice versa. So I'm back home. I feel super happy. So yeah, man, how about you? Where are you right now?
I'm currently in Madrid because I lived here for almost 2 years some time ago, and I had a plan to go to Oasis to see Oasis in Edinburgh. So I'm a huge Oasis fan. I have the tickets since they were released. So I'm just remote working. I really like being in the European time zone because basically you're free in the morning and there's everybody's sleeping. So all the morning is great to work. And it's been really exciting. Something that was really exciting today is that I woke up, I grabbed a cup of coffee, I opened my laptop, and I saw that yesterday in Bando we made more volume just yesterday than all May. So it
Wow.
was one of those days of huge growth. So I needed to do some ops. Like the ops team were sleeping, so I needed to do some things to make sure that the operation kept running. And those are the thrilling parts of the startup journey. As Ben Horowitz says, is basically building a startup is just two emotions: euphoria and terror. And that was
Yeah.
an euphoric moment.
Yeah. So tell me more about this massive peak in volume. Like what led to that? That's actually really interesting. I didn't know about this. Would love to hear more about what your thesis is around why you would see such a spike.
You know that we are discovering and realizing that payments are, you might think of payments as a constant flow, but they are not a constant flow. They have these peaks and overstreams, and if you as a payments company identify them and know how to operate upon them, you are in a great position. And we do a lot of building in public, so we detected that it'll be a big spike because of the global Prime Day of Amazon. So we prepared ourselves. We prepared a couple of campaigns, and we were right. So Prime Day in Mexico is happening yesterday. Well, for people listening on Friday, yesterday on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So yeah, and it's really interesting because we've identified a lot of things that we can tweak in our infrastructure. Uh, so yeah, stablecoin payments are really exciting, and the most exciting part is that they operate or we optimize our infrastructure to do this. And at the end, the last mile is we also need to optimize it. And a lot of times that last mile doesn't run on stablecoins yet. So yeah, I don't know. It's like building a puzzle without the whole picture. You just get new pieces and just start putting them together.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is Frontera, right? It's a frontier sort of concept, and it's probably the first certainly in the Prime Day history that they've seen, this much volume coming in from stablecoins. So I think that's super exciting, man. So, and the other thing that I was also really excited about as you were talking about it was the fact that we're talking about frontier markets as a whole. I think that's the other direction that I'm personally really excited by. And we've actually got a couple of news items that speak to this, again, the bet that we're taking, that is, hey, let's talk about like frontier tech and frontier markets beyond Latin America, because it all kind of ties back, and it's all very, and like we have two pieces of news in particular that are kind of very much so in line with that.
Yeah,
Like a week after we decided to make this pivot.
yeah, amazing. So, okay, perfect. So let's start with the docket. The first thing is that we are grading, as I always say, is the best. As I always say, the best research about crypto in frontier markets, and we want to dedicate 5 minutes to analyze the essays that we post. And this week we posted an essay that's the whole thesis is that founder-led companies obviously outperform the market. And this was inspired by a post we saw from Jano, the CEO of Blockworks, saying that his thesis is that he only, like in public markets, he'll only invest in companies that are founder-led. Coinbase, Nvidia, Meta, Netflix, Airbnb, Salesforce. So that's a really interesting thesis, because that means that when a founder is still operating the business, there's a premium for that company. So that got us thinking, and we started thinking about how can we translate this to frontier markets. And the thing that we identified is that in the industry where we are right now, in crypto, in frontier markets, we see that there's a triad that basically great founders have great product background, they are crypto natives, and they should be regionally native for different types of solutions. Right now, we're talking of Latin America, but what we see is that being each one of these dimensions brings different assets for a founder. For example, being LatAm native or frontier market native, we identify that we understand the problems a lot better. I mean, someone trying to fix remittances that has never sent money abroad because they didn't need to, because they were American, European, or something, they do not feel the pain. With all the cultural context that we have, having this is super important. Also, being product native, because we've seen a lot of founders that maybe are crypto enthusiasts and crypto native. Obviously, they are from a frontier market, but they've never worked at a technology company or they've never built product, and that's a huge liability. And the final thing is being crypto native, like being in the trenches, understanding the technology. That helps us, and that helps the founders build better solutions. And obviously, if a founder doesn't have all of the legs of this three legs stool, maybe someone else from the team can enhance this. Maybe they hire a super experienced product leader, or they are from the US and they need to hire someone with boots in the ground in the regions that they are. So we talk about this thesis because we see that it's important for investors to understand this combination, and to founders to identify what's the largest liability that they have to cover it.
Yeah, I fully agree. I mean, I think one thing that I often reflect about being a solo founder is, where are my knowledge gaps, of which I have many, right? And I think we've spoken about as well. You have Lalo with Bando and Espacio Crypto, but I think the way, just generally solo founder or not, the way you ultimately end up building like the best teams is hiring, FES people, like hell yes people, right? We were just talking about this before we hopped on the call. I think the additional challenge in Latin America is the fact that oftentimes talent isn't quite as bountiful as it might be if you are in Silicon Valley, right? If you're in Silicon Valley, it's very common to hear people at next to your dinner table talking about the latest models that are being released by OpenAI, for example. You rarely come across those types of conversations in Latin America, right? Specifically in public spaces. So I think that's the other added benefit. It's like you can have incredibly talented founders, but if you don't have an incredibly talented team next to you, then that becomes incredibly challenging, right? So let's talk a little bit more about that. Let's talk about hiring in Latin America and how you've been dealing with this, and how you think about onboarding new colleagues to your team.
Dude, that's one of the main challenges, I think, as a founder, hiring the right people. And the way that we've approached it is that our ecosystem has the asset that we have Espacio Crypto. So a lot of people already knows us. And for example, we just hired a really senior head of ops, and we were looking for this position, and I didn't hire anyone until this person came by. And we were at a crypto event in Mexico, and he approached me. He told me, "Dude, I wanted to meet you for a couple of months. We have this friend in common that is one of our angel investors. I studied with him. I want to chat." And basically, it was a really positive signal in the sense that we have a friend, not only a friend in common, but one of my best investors is friends with this guy. So perfect, like that filter passes. Then he says that he's interested in working with us, and then his skills fit the position. And I don't joke around with these things. This happened on a Saturday. On Monday we grabbed coffee, and on Tuesday we were doing the onboarding. Obviously, with all the due diligence, doing like a background check, asking for references. But whenever you need to hire, you need to hire fast. It's like whenever you are going to a supermarket, you don't go and think and try to analyze what's the, I don't know, the different infinite options of the card that you can have. You go for apples, you get the best one, and you leave the market. So yeah, that's the way that I've approached it, and we have several of those stories with Espacio Crypto. Acid, that is one of our best uh, team members, came along by the community. Also, Joker that's our analyst. He wanted to build basically Espacio Crypto. Then someone from our team told him like, "Dude, we are already doing it," and we brought him up on board. So having a public persona and basically this type of podcast is a huge asset in a market that is so hard to navigate because it's really small. How,
Yeah.
how do you how's been your process?
Well, actually, you mentioned something that I thought was really interesting. So you said hire fast. And there's this maxim that I'm sure you've heard, which is hire slow, fire fast. But in reality, like what's missing in that equation is that you said like it took you so long to find the right candidate, and then you found them and you move really fast, right? And I think that's incredibly important,
Exactly.
right? Yeah, yeah. And so I think that's also, we're hiring. We have two open roles right now, but one, like, they're intern roles, and it's been so hard, even just like an operations intern, right? And we've been incredibly selective to like, because I think you have to set, like, even at the intern level, like the highest of standards. And we managed to fill one of the roles. The other one is still open. And the role that we hired is just like, for the research intern, is top notch. I mean, um, based out of DC. She works at a really kind of very well-positioned organization and graduated from a leading American university. She's from Latin America. And these are the types of profiles that I'm really excited by, is like oftentimes the Latin American diaspora that maybe studied in the US or in Europe and then has a really strong interest in technology and advancing frontier technology in the region. It's like those people I oftentimes find are really great performers too.
Yeah, and one other approach that I really like is hire for talent and not for a position. When you have that privilege, is great. For example, this person I was looking for someone like him, but it's talent, and I knew that someone talented with drive will get into an organization and start adding value.
Totally.
uh, Regardless if it's in growth, marketing, ops, product. So yeah, and when you are a small team, value add is a lot more important than, I don't know, job description in this moment, right? And that'll evolve. Um, so yeah, man, obviously, definitely, if you are part of the Frontera community, you haven't read this article of how this convergence of product knowledge, crypto knowledge, and nativity is so important, go subscribe to the newsletter, read it. And let's move to the news of the week. The first one is, I really like, did you see this? Did you see the stablecoin payments landscape that was presented by Utila in collaboration with Bitso, Minteo, BlindPay, and Chuck? Uh, Chuck is stablecoin lead at Paxos. I met him in New York at the Solana Accelerate conference. He's great. Soon we're gonna have him in the pod. But I really like, is one of these maps that presents how the different areas of stablecoin payments, the different companies in these sub buckets. For example, we have B2B payments, wallet infrastructure, merchant acceptance, issuance, exchanges, and OTC. And I didn't know this, but it was really cool to see Bando here in merchant acceptance.
Let's
I was
go.
looking for, yeah, I was looking for us, and I said like, where are they placing us? And definitely, that's a great way to see it. What do you think about the combination of local, international, like local companies? We have Lemon, Ripio, Bitso, we have Felix Pago, El Dorado, Bando, and also we have international companies like we have Rain, we have the Binances, we have the OKX portal. How do you see these? What are your takes from this map?
Well, one, props to Chuck. I always think these kinds of maps are really fun because I think they give people an opportunity to get a really full sense of, okay, how mature this ecosystem currently is. I'd love to. One of the things that I find really interesting with these types of maps is the emergence and the surge of these companies over the course of time, right? So, shout out to Chuck on that front. On the question of like international versus local, I think the opportunity is there, right? And if people are going to go ahead and seize it, go for it, right? I think if anything, Bando is immediately much more competitive and is much more willing to put in, time and effort. And we were just talking about one of the potential quote unquote competitors of Bando, or perhaps I was speaking with Lalo about this, in fact, and 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 he said, well, actually, the problem with this particular competitor is they've just become lazy, right? And they're no longer pushing and advancing innovation. And so for you guys to be able to get a sense for, okay, what's actually happening in the space and where people, and also how does this map onto the capital that people are investing, and which startups are being funded? Like, I think this is a really good first step. I would love to see, in addition to this, like volume monthly that these different groups are moving, how much capital have they raised, what countries are they operating in. Like, this is cool, it's interesting, but I think there is a case for much more robust and in-depth data for this.
Yeah, yeah. And you know what's really exciting, that we like, if you are a frequent listener of Frontera, you know a lot of these companies. We've had Dave from Etherfuse, also Will from Inteo, Ben from Bitso. So I don't know. Yeah, Manu from Felix. So
Yeah,
we are also Juan Di from Kappa. So basically, it's a moment of uh, we are in the right track, right? And I think that we can collaborate with a lot of different opportunities, and also these kind of maps. I love the how specific it is, and it talks about the narratives that we are having today. The headline is stablecoin payments Latin America, and
yeah,
those three keywords 1 year ago were not in the hype. They were not a narrative, and today this is a narrative: payments slash stablecoins slash Latin America. So it just feels great seeing this in a concise way.
totally. Yeah, and I also think we need to do, like, I'd love to see a lot more data on this. But I think we're both like very data kind of research nerds, so I think it leaves a lot to be desired, essentially.
Yeah. And well, as any research, the first step is having like a landscape.
Yeah,
Then we can go deep, right?
exactly.
Obviously, if you wanna go deeper, our essays are like great reference. I won't stop shilling them because they are fucking amazing. So, dude, let's move to some sad news or really interesting news. Is that there was a 148 million hack in the Brazilian finance system. 40 million were laundered through crypto, and it all started. The hackers gave $280,000 bribe to a worker of a financial institution to get their personal access to the systems of the company. And it's just several things. It's really sad that a bribe of $2,800 ended in a hack of 148 million. Obviously, this person didn't know the power they were held to. And also, it was really interesting because I saw Zach XBT's analysis, and he realized that the hackers sent a lot of these reales, these Brazilian reais, to crypto OTCs to send it to crypto and start laundering. So it's not a great. It's definitely not like with it's not a good history for crypto in Latin America, specifically in Brazil. I think that more stablecoin regulation will come. This will push the narrative of how maybe dangerous stablecoins could be. So yeah, what do you think? What's your take here?
I think actually, I mean, there's so many ways to always look at things, but like, is this bullish or bearish for crypto? For me, this is immensely bullish, right? Like, if anybody cares about security and privacy of assets, then you should naturally be looking to crypto. There's no way, like, I can't bribe anybody to give me all of your funds that you currently custody in crypto, right? There is no $2,800 fine that I can give to anyone that would unlock the capital that, a DAO has in its treasury, right? Or this bank really, if they were properly custodying their assets, they might be doing it through a multi-sig, right? So, and you introduce these single points of vulnerability. So, I mean, yes, unfortunate that it was laundered through crypto, but in fact, some of it was laundered through USDT. So I haven't looked into this, but I'm sure they were able to pause and freeze some of the assets. I know the USDT team usually moves quite quickly here, but for me, if anything, it's, why would they move to crypto, right? And maybe we should, in the first place, be storing our assets on these ledgers that are much more secure in the first place. So the optimist in me is obviously saying, hopefully, maybe the Brazilian government starts thinking about, maybe we should be storing these assets in much more secure capacities. Yeah, what will it take for you, in your opinion, Ab, to be able to spin that narrative and get the Brazilian government to actually start thinking in that capacity, instead of immediately the reaction is, actually, this is really bearish, and do we want them to start actually allocating their capital on chain?
Yeah, well, it's hard because they need to have a lot of context and a lot of information. I think that one of the main points is that like digging on how this hack happened. Basically, the hackers got access to a middleware between smaller banks and the central bank, and basically that's the thing that they hacked, and that's the thing that they were able to steal the money from. So basically, if you run on chain that doesn't exist, because it's a unified ledger, and always when you have several points of contacts more in a system, like in a technology system, each connection between systems is a single point of failure, right? So the hackers detected that, and that's the main point. Like, first, if you run on chain, that couldn't happen because it's a unified ledger. Second, that this is a weird point, but second, if you run on chain on a regulated stablecoin, or like on a serious stablecoin, you can freeze the balances. That's kind of against crypto's ethos, but I think that it's important to have the distinction between Bitcoin and everything else. For stablecoins, I think that that's an asset, or that's a feature, not a bug. But the thing is that, I don't know if I come with regulators and try to explain this, who has the incentive to do that? Maybe the stablecoin issuers, maybe a couple of technology startups, but not a lot more people.
I I mean, I think our thesis is like all of this money will eventually come on chain, right? And so I think what I'm worried might occur is that they look at this and they say, okay, we need to like ban crypto because crypto is bad. But actually, it's like any challenge really presents an exciting opportunity to think differently. And I hope that the good people of Brazil spin it that way. So we'll see. But yeah, I mean, I think the main concern is the fact that with one single bribe, you can steal $150 million, right? And like the vector of centralization there is horrible.
Yeah, that's crazy.
But yeah,
It's super crazy. Let's keep moving. This is a quick news, and Tether is expanding to South America, specifically to Brazil, for their mining operation. We've mentioned how they are opening shop in El Salvador. They are investing heavily in Bitcoin mining, and now they have a partnership with this company called Adecargo, and the deal is that this company at the cargo is a renewables company, and as you know, well, I don't know if people know, but renewables don't have a steady supply, because for obvious reasons they produce, if they are solar, they produce more energy during the day. If they're wind, they depend on the wind currents. So there's time, if a generator exceeds the generation capacity that it's needed at that moment, it's basically they're wasting energy or they wasting the production. So there's always a surplus that someone wants to or needs to consume so that it's not wasted. So that surplus is the one that they are selling or partnering with Tether to power mining facilities in Brazil. And yeah, I like this thesis a lot because renewables plus Bitcoin mining make a lot of sense basically everywhere around the world.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is one of the things I think is really interesting about Tether is how much they're being creative with how they engage with the region. So, whether it's Bitcoin mining or how they're thinking about generally like energy projects, they do, they've been investing into
Yeah.
mining Bitcoin with volcano geothermal energy, right? So, props to them for being so agile and creative. And I think that's when you reach that size and maturity, you sort of have to start thinking out of the box. Otherwise, you die. So, yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Let's
What else?
move. This is one of your favorite news.
Yes.
Go. You say it. What's the thing?
Oh my God. I was just in El Salvador a few days ago. So basically, as we've talked about many times before, El Salvador is allocating substantial amounts of capital towards their Bitcoin reserves, which is up 100 and no total profit $450 million.
Up 153%.
Yes, exactly. But like that's just insane, man. That's insane. There's and we've the other like piece of related news tied to this as well, right? If you yes, the Bulgarian, yeah. So Bulgaria in 2018 sold 200,000 Bitcoin, which would now represent 80% of its public debt. So, for me, you pair these two pieces of news together, and it's like the perfect kind of argument that we're trying to propose here is smaller economies that are perhaps being more challenged when it comes to the frontier of how we advance national interests and their relationship with crypto. It's tied to the Brazilian news too, right? Is what these governments should be doing is allocating plenty more resources to, and thinking, okay, where should we be safeguarding our assets? So, yeah, they sold, basically a substantial amount of Bitcoin. Unfortunately, El Salvador is doing the exact opposite and is doing incredibly well. A lot of people, when Bitcoin was at like 15,000, were criticizing El Salvador like crazy. But the reality is El Salvador can now leverage this Bitcoin to either use this as collateral for loans or generally just safeguard the people's assets. So I'm excited. How do you think about like El Salvador and this massive kind of both of these pieces of news paired together?
Well, I think that specifically in El Salvador, as you said, they didn't have a lot to lose. They don't have a fiat like a local currency. They are a dollarized economy, and also they are not a huge country. So it's the classical innovator's dilemma. Uh, I think that in business and everywhere, real risks or real threats for companies and for like the classical government, it comes from the edges. It doesn't come from the center. Like the main challenger for this is a perfect example. The main challenger for Nvidia for OpenAI 2 years ago was Anthropic, Google, maybe Meta, and now the main challenger is XAI. And I mean, when you see the all the things that needed to happen to for that to take place, it's crazy. Nobody, I don't think that 3 years ago we would say no. Yeah, a huge competitor will be XAI. No, like there was no way. In that sense, it's really hard to say that El Salvador is gonna be like a global like country competitor, but it might happen, right? It might be the Singapore of the region, and we need a Singapore in the region. So it makes a lot of sense that bet, and I think that the Bulgarian approach of selling Bitcoin, it's hard. It's really hard to say. In hindsight, is oh yeah, they were so stupid. They should have hold. They should have been diamond hands and all of those memes. But in reality, I mean, it was a contrarian bet, and maybe at that moment they had the fiduciary duty to liquidate those assets. But it's really hard. it's really painful to see that they could pay so much of their debt if they would have not sold that Bitcoin.
Yeah, but I think it's like just case studies of Bulgaria made this mistake once. El Salvador is the complete opposite, and like as a country is thinking about where they should be allocating their reserves. Well, look, it clearly should be assets like Bitcoin. And I think I've mentioned it in the past that I was chatting with a friend who works at the Bank of Mexico, and I said, "Hey, do you want to, would the Bank of Mexico ever allocate, resources into Bitcoin?" And like, no, definitely not, right? And so, um, I hopefully that will change. Like I know for a fact that's going to change. So I'm looking forward to that being the case.
Perfect. And the final news of the week, I think that this one's close to your heart, so take us home.
Yes. So Bilal is actually a friend that I was organizing ETH Barcelona with many years ago, and he recently met with Nayib Bukele. He is the Minister of Crypto and Blockchain of Pakistan. And what I love about this is that these, and it perfectly matches onto the Frontera thesis of we should be covering what is happening in frontier markets as a whole, right? So here we have yeah, Bilal and Naeem basically chatting and sitting down and discussing, I'm sure, what role crypto will play and advancing the interests of both of these countries. But as you say, it's like Pakistan and El Salvador have basically little to lose when it comes to the advancement of these frontier technologies and what strategic bets they take, right? And so, hey, you might as well take a bet on the future because it will undoubtedly pay asymmetric returns, right? And really, like, would there have been a world where these two countries sat down and discussed, the future of blockchain, for example, 10 years ago? Absolutely not, right? So yeah, how do you perceive this, or what calls you in this particular engagement?
Well, I think that these pictures are really exciting because, I mean, I'm not an international relations expert, but I don't know if there are a lot of things in common between El Salvador and Pakistan. You know, Um it's like Mexico and Malaysia. I mean, the most important thing in common might be ban from mantle. So what I mean is that when you see international cooperation around a specific topic, it's exciting to understand what are the incentives of both countries to do that. And what this guy says, Bilal, is that they see El Salvador as a blueprint for innovation, and that's really interesting because also Pakistan is in a position where they have a lot to win, and also they are like in an international tense position always with India. They're in the middle of a really conflictive zone, but the way to get the country out of that is through technology, education, and innovation. Uh, I'm sure that they talked about different benchmarks, how they can in Pakistan implement some things. Dude, we should invite Bilal to the podcast definitely.
I think we should invite Bilal and Naib as well.
Yeah, naive. Yeah, our body naive.
Yeah,
Um, Dude, perfect. So thank you for another episode. Really exciting. We're gonna start producing some preparatory episodes for the Stablecoin conference. It's happening in August 27 and 28th. So really, it's gonna be super, super, super exciting. And well, as always, you can follow Kush at 0x Kush. You can follow me at Abraham CR. What's up for you this week, man? Any exciting things?
just locked in. As I mentioned, we closed some projects, so really right now we're honing back in on strategy, some meta level work for us too. So yeah, that's about it. How about you?
Amazing. No, I think that focused, also locked in. Like this week's growth in Bando was exciting. Let's keep
Huge,
growing.
man. Congrats.
Thank you. It's exciting to have this type of issues.
Yeah.
So, well, yeah. Thank you for listening, Frontera. As always, follow us in our socials and see you next week. Thank you.
Peace. Ciao.